We generally don't have a bunch here, but we're glad to see you here. So I've asked Commissioner Frisbee to give us an invocation.
Our Father in heaven, we are grateful for the opportunity we have to meet together to discuss the matters before our city. And we're grateful for the free country in which we live that provides this opportunity for us to be able to participate and to try to make our community a better place to live and to work. And we're grateful for the servicemen and women, the first responders who serve to protect our freedoms. And we pray that God will watch over and protect them and bless them and their families. We pray for a blessing upon the people of Ukraine at this time, that they will be able to be comforted at this time of challenge and trial. And we pray for these things in the name of our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Commissioner Morgan, can you hear us?
Yes.
Good, thank you. I just want to make sure, and it looks like we have Commissioner Moore has joined us now too. So the only one we're missing is Commissioner Warner, and he's excused tonight. So first, or item 3 on that is the approval of the minutes of our regular meeting on February 23rd. Everybody had a chance to review those and look over them. February 19th.
Meeting on the 23rd.
Oh, that's right. Okay. February 9th. So it's the meeting of February 9th. Anybody have any questions or problems with those? Need a motion?
I move we approve the minutes from the regular meeting of February 9th with the amendment.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor by yes?
Yes.
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 No opposed. Our next item is a public forum. This is a chance to talk to the commissioners about something that is not on the agenda. If it's on the agenda, it'll be covered in the public hearings later on. But if you have something you'd like to tell us, please come to the microphone and state your name.
Brian Hewlett, you guys might already know this, but MTech got their funding for their building over in Red Bridge. So anyway.
Thank you. Any other public forum issues? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to 5.1. This is a public hearing request by Rob McNeil to change the zoning in Utah County parcels 3084-120 and 3084-117. This is located at 2007 South Highway 198. And the applicant is requesting an R115 residential zoning designation, and the property is currently zoned A5H, which is a holding annexation zone. And Chris will give us a short presentation.
Yeah, we're gonna figure out the screen share first.
Okay.
So bear with us just for one sec. All right. Good evening. So let me show you the map of where the zone change is proposed to take place. It is these two parcels. This is immediately south of Springside Meadows and immediately north of the area, including the Springs of Spring Lake annexation. So it's currently zoned A5H. That's what it was brought in as back in 2020. The proposed zoning is R115. It's 11.95 acres total, spread over 2 parcels. Couple things to think about with this. This was part of the JT Valley annexation. And as you recall, when we talked about the Springs of Spring Lake annexation, JT Valley in the annexation agreement was designated as a transition zone between Springside Meadows and the larger lots in Spring Lake. So with that said, Springside Meadows is zoned R112. This is proposed to be zoned R115. That would help the incremental transition. And R115 does fall within the general plan designation for this area, which is low density residential. And that's pretty much it that I have to say about it. But
Okay.
the applicant is on, and if you got any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them.
Rob, would you like to say something before we open the public hearing?
Rob, you're still muted.
Yeah, no, I can wait until after the public hearing, if that's okay.
That's fine. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay, motion to open public hearing.
Motion to open public hearing.
Motion and a second. All in favor by yes?
Yes.
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 No opposed. With public hearing, this is a chance for the public to talk to us about this item. If you do come to the name and limit your comments to 3 minutes or less.
Good evening. My name is Gene Carley. I own 2.2 acres of property that is adjacent to the McNeil development in its entirety, that along the west boundary of my property. We share with Mr. McNeil's property, and on my north boundary, again, we share that north boundary line. My understanding is that Mr. McNeil developed up to 42 units of housing in two separate increments. This one that has two parcels in it, and another one that has two parcels in it of about a little over 8 acres. Total acres are somewhere around 20 acres. About the proposed development from the standpoint of it not really fitting into Payson City's general plan. And I'll give you some examples of what I mean by that. In terms of it being, it was mentioned by Mr. Van Aken that this parcel would be a transition zone into a more rural setting. What I've seen in the way of preliminary platting of the 9 acres, it's more of the same. Doesn't look very much different than the Springside Meadows development. If you take out the dense multi-housing, it's typically the same, about 1/3 acre parcels of property. There's a lot of questions that probably should come up as it relates to wetlands, sensitive lands. The land use matrix, or the implementation matrix in the general plan, it talks about different strategies, like creating a balance between the built areas in the proposed annexation area and the natural environment. I don't see any effort in this proposed subdivision that would even come close to that. It talks about, in the land use element, the strategies to enhance the natural environment, wetlands, waterways, hillsides, view corridors, parks and so forth, open space. To me, I don't see that. It talks about discouraging the extension of urban services into agricultural areas. The land that is in under consideration here tonight has been used for a very well. I've lived on my property for 17 years. It's been used for growing squash, watermelons, hay. It's been an agricultural use. Go away. We don't know anything about animal rights. Haven't heard anything from Mr. McNeil. Maybe he can address that. Likely there's, in 1/3 acre lots, are there going to be animal rights? My guess is probably not. We haven't heard from Mr. McNeil about the road that would cut through his development and dump out onto Highway 198. Are there, is the state, since that's a state highway, has Mr. McNeil received in writing that would happen? There's just a whole lot of questions, and I don't want to dominate the discussion here, but maybe one last point, and that would be with regard to density. Mr. McNeil represents that the density is going to be 1/3 acre lots. Well, there's a state law that was passed by the Utah legislature last year that went into effect on October the 1st of 2021. It's called the IADU, Internal Accessory Dwelling Unit Law. And under that law, it requires cities and counties to, wherever they have the single family zones, that they must allow the property owner to, if that property owner wants to add an additional unit to their property within the footprint of the property, and the owner is going to live on site, that would be permissible, under this statute. And there are some exceptions to that. If the lot is less than 6,000 square feet, then that wouldn't be permissible in zones where there are, small lots like that. So that concerns me because really, with the way our state is growing, the way our county is growing, the way this city is growing, people are going to find it more and more difficult to secure affordable housing. And this will be a great way for a property owner to finish his basement, finish an attic, finish a carport or a garage, and have an additional family living on that property. So technically speaking, there could be anywhere from, I would say, 75% of the units up to 100% of the units that could have an additional unit on their property. So with that, I would recommend that the Planning Commission follow the decision of the City Council and let this play out. Between the City Council and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments?
Okay, I'm Carrie Knapp. And I live in Spring Lake. My husband and I own property that is in relation to these 11 acres. We have property bordering on the east side of this and as well as on the south side of this. And I just want to quickly recommend that last week the city council voted on the other piece to keep that in a holding, the holding zone, the R5H, I think it is. And I would just recommend to keep this parcel also in that same zone for a little bit longer while we do figure out more, while the developer gets the necessary permits for the road connecting to the highway. I have another resident in Spring Lake just stopped by my house, and he, I know as of Monday, there hadn't been any communication with the, I guess it's a county road, or with UDOT from the developer getting that permit. And I just had a resident stop by my house saying that he just dropped into UDOT today and asked them about it, and they were unaware of this. So I don't believe Mr. McNeil can answer this after, but I don't believe anything's been brought to their attention yet. And they said there are definite concerns with that. They haven't seen, they haven't seen the measurements and all of that exactly, but that where it's shown in the preliminary maps that would be a huge concern for them. Which, if that is a huge concern, if they weren't to allow that, then in his preliminary design, there is only one road out onto 500 West, I believe. Some of the proposals have shown roads coming into Spring Lake. They were also, the county, he met with them. I can't remember if that was today or if that was last week, but that the county was also unaware of any potential roads coming into that county road on 12240, that would be a huge concern. So I just feel like there's still a lot more that due diligence that needs to be done and some homework that needs to be done before changing this. So if the development as a whole will be the full 20 acres, if part of it still is in the holding zone, I would just propose that all of it stay in that holding zone until we can get a plan for the whole piece. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else? And if your comments are the same as a previous participant in the public hearing, just say so and don't repeat the same comments, please.
So my name is Del Scott. I live at 3808 West, 12240 South in Spring Lake. So I'm kind of the last property owner that borders the proposed subdivision. And I've lived there since 1977. I've got a couple of concerns. One happened to be when Payson came through with the right of way to bring the pressurized irrigation north from the pond. And there's some springs and some water rights that got cut and had to be repaired when they went through there for some of the west of that right of way. And so I'm a little concerned about the drainage in that area. When I bought my house and then bought 4 acres to the east of my house, we submitted an application for a county subdivision. And we built our house and then sold property to the Knapps so that they could build their house as part of the county subdivision. So I have 3.5 acres, they have 1.5 acres because we were zoned R5. And we had to build our house up on the hill. Both of us are up on the hill, if you know the Spring Lake area. And because we both have septic tanks, we couldn't dig and put in the field drains down below. Now, that's not what's going to happen with the subdivision, but what will happen is the grading and the digging is going to change the way the water flows into the pond that's that's north of Spring Lake. There's a kind of a collector pond that's on the Knapp property. And it's also going to impact, I'm going to guess, Carly's well water, because nobody has culinary water from Spring Lake Water Company that is east of my place. So while I think the sewage can be taken care of, I've heard some plans for that. And while I think that the other subdivision took care of that by raising the ground so they didn't have to deal with the groundwater that was there, I can tell you that I'm on my property. If I put a shovel in the ground to plant a tree, it filled up with water. And so it took a certain place to deal with that. So I have some concerns with the aquifers in that area that have a lot of surface water. And I think following along the recommendation of putting on hold so that the land use study could be taken place by Payson City would make a lot of sense, so that the whole 20 acres is handled in a coherent fashion relative to both egress and the other environmental issues that need to be taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else?
Hi, folks, I'm Kelly Warner. And I think what everybody's missing here is, by Payson City's own words, your sewer's not big enough for this. They had to grant a $70 million whatever. And I'm going, I've been a plumber my whole life. Well, most of it. And guys, shit runs downhill. You know, it's not made to pump, but yeah, you can pump it, but where's it going? Drive out here on the freeway and roll down your window. You don't even have to roll down your window. You can smell it. What is the plans for that? Does anybody, nobody said. That's all I wonder.
Okay, thank you for your comments.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
My name is Heather Beddoes. I live in Spring Lake, just kind of south of the lake, a couple houses. In the house and on the land that my husband's family have lived on since the early 1900s. I'm just seconding what everybody else has said. I think everybody in Spring Lake is concerned with this development. I would just second what Carrie Knapp has said. If the decision last week was to leave, I guess, the previous request in the holding zone, then maybe this makes sense to me and probably to everybody else to leave this one in the holding zone until decisions can be made and permits can be submitted and everything else.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other comments?
Brenda Warner. I have pause for the proposed exit road from the subdivision onto the highway that borders my neighbor to the north of me's fence. His carport or his garage is right next to that fence attached to his house. And we all know if there's a road that comes out right there, they're going to have a turn off of the highway in order to turn into that road, which will be right in his driveway. I'm not understanding that proposed road at all. There is no room. And that also is from here to that wall in the turning lane to turn into Spring Lake. The turning lane is already there where that proposed road is. There's and there's a cement barricade there. So I just don't understand how UDOT would ever allow that with the 1900 South Road a block from that road and the Spring Lake Road a half a block from that road. It doesn't make any sense. To me, it needs to come through the subdivision or next to where the fire station is going to be and come out on that 1900 South Road. And there just be that existing new road there
Okay.
to be their access road.
Okay.
I too agree. It needs to stay in a holding pattern because there's a lot of unanswered questions at this point.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Are there other comments? Seeing none, we'll take a motion to close the public hearing. You want to speak first, Rob, before we close the public hearing? That'd probably be a good idea.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I'd like to just to address a few of the questions that have come up by the residents. And just reiterate the first slides that Chris Van Aken showed to everybody is that this does fit in the general plan. There's no question that it does fit in the general plan. The general plan calls for 2 to 5 units per acre. I'm on the low end of that. So with 3rd-acre lots on 20 plus acres, I'm only at 2.02 units per acre. That's it. So I'm at the very bottom of what's allotted in this area. I'm not asking for townhomes or apartments. I have agreed to put in 3rd-acre lots, which is right there at the bottom at 2 units per acre. So it does fit the general plan. There are no wetlands. I've had a professional company do a water delineation report on all of the Zeman property, and there was no wetlands found on this property. There's no wetland vegetation. It's all upland. Just because you have a pond, that's on your property does not mean there's wetlands. The pond was created 30 years ago when Ron Zeman built his home. The county had him put in a pond for water suppression for his home. And so those ponds are man-made, and there was no wetland vegetation found on any of this ground, period. So in animal rights, if somebody really truly wants to have a farm and horses and have those kind of animals, they're more than welcome to move further south, or further west, or they will choose somewhere, that fits what they're looking for as a buyer and, their hobbies. They'll go and they'll search for that kind of property. I do believe that 3rd-acre lots, right now are big lots. Those are good lots in the city, and they will produce big, nice homes on these lots. And we can take care of a lot of those questions in CC&Rs and in a development agreement of how those homes will look, the square footage, the exterior elevations of those homes. They will be nice homes. We don't have to have a 5-acre parcel to have a nice home. There's plenty of nice lots, even around the temple. If you look, there's 0.28 of an acre around the temple, and those homes are all selling right now for $850 and above. Those are nice homes. And so I do believe that the 3rd-acre lots absolutely fits the general plan of the city. UDOT, to go back to Carrie Knapp's question, to just have a resident show up to your home and say, I don't know anything, they should call me. But we have submitted our application to UDOT. We have our pre-application meeting set up for next week. There is many people that work for UDOT, that can handle our applications. So, to have somebody just say, I don't know anything, there's a lot of people, but we have set up our pre-application meeting next week with UDOT. David Peterson, my engineer, has set that up and has filed the application, preliminary application for that. So that is in. The other issues, of sewer and the lift station, we all know that that's why we have good engineers in the city. David Peterson is a great engineer. There are several lift stations within the city. The movie theater, the hospital, the mental health place, I think, across the street from the hospital there, they're all on a lift station, and we've had discussions with Travis and other members there to do a regional lift station that could accommodate for other residents besides my subdivision. So I just want you to remember that, my agenda is to be a good steward in this area. I think I've done that by creating bigger lots. I'm not asking for 5 units per acre. I've had many residents that have reached out to me and said, thank you for not putting townhomes and not suggesting townhomes in this area. Many of them, and they're happy with the 3rd acre lots. I know that there's a few that no matter what I do, I will never please them, but it is my intention to have a good subdivision, a good steward to the land and Spring Lake. And of course, we have the access out for UDOT, which is in progress. We're still working with the city on whether or not we're going to have an access out to Spring Lake. I have showed Mr. Knapp a couple of different concepts in the area. And I did have 2 accesses, but the new concepts I have is just 1 access. And that has been discussed and shown to Mr. Knapp and the city planners and to the city engineer. And all of this is still concept until we, move forward. But this is about the 12 acres to the north that's in the city. And I am asking for 3rd acre lots, which is a transition from 12,000, to the bigger lots. And I'm open to any questions that you might have for me.
Do we have any questions on the commission? Okay. I need a motion to close the public hearing.
Move we close public hearing on item 5.1.
Second.
Have a motion and second. All in favor by yes?
Yes.
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 Okay, discussion. Anybody want to start?
It seems to fit the general plan with the transition area. And at this point, the plan is just a concept. It's not the final plat. So there's so many changes that could happen between zoning and when they actually start. So I don't personally see issues with this.
Okay. Anybody else?
No, my comment would be that I guess I would be more happier with a transition from the current development over there, whether it be lot size as the lots grow as they go towards Spring Lake, so there's a little more transition. But that's my thoughts.
Well, it does go, the adjacent subdivision is actually 12,000 square foot. And then this would be 15,000.
Right, and I understand that, but you know, we've always discussed that going into rural areas, you know, to transition the lot sizes as you close in. Now, the only other issue I have there is if there's going to be an outlet from that subdivision into that the street there comes out of Spring Lake along the pond there. So I think that's one of the residents' big concern is the added traffic that's going to bring to that road. So those are my concerns.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I was kind of thinking along the same lines as you, that it definitely fits with the general plan, what we were originally thinking there. And I've seen a community kind of like this. Otherwise, I would say go check it out, but it's actually very similar where you've got the small body of water there that the community is built around. And as the development's going closer to that, they found a good way to say, hey, those obviously those that still live there, your property is not going to change, your zone is not going to change. So keep your animals, keep all of that there, and keep that personality there, and we will work to grow around it. Yeah, they found a good way to do it. So forward that to Chris. And keep that in mind for later.
John, did you have some comments?
Yeah, I'm actually kind of happy that somebody's proposing larger lots. We're seeing a lot of really small lots and houses crowded close together, a lot of townhomes and condos. To me, the larger lots is more the type or the picture of Payson that I like to see. I think there are some questions about roadway access, and I don't know about the groundwater levels and that sort of thing, but there are some questions there that need to be answered. I like the concept of larger lots.
Yeah. Right.
Well, and I think the engineering things obviously have to be answered. He can't proceed if those don't get an answer from here. And so it doesn't affect the zone change because he can't proceed if those questions don't have answers. And so I think we can move forward with the zone change, but knowing that he won't be able to complete this development if he doesn't get road access, he doesn't get the water taken care of, he doesn't have the sewer and the engineering approval. And so just knowing that that would happen, I don't have an issue with the zone change itself.
Okay.
So.
And this is, in my opinion, it is a transition zone. It is starting to do that. And the general plan actually indicates that the 12,400 would be the dividing line between the bigger lots and even the mini farm lots or whatever further south. And so I think this is a good transition myself to get started on that, going from 12 to 15, and then possibly as we go further south, even 20. So 1,000. So other comments from commissioners? Okay, I need a motion on this. The options are to remand it back to staff, to deny it, or to approve or approve with conditions. And always, of course, we want to have findings and all that kind of stuff with it if we do make a motion. So
I move that we recommend approval to the city council of the zone change to an R115 zone on the parcels for 5.1, finding that this is in line with the Payson City General Plan, and it is a good transition and with the larger lots.
okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. All in favor by yes?
Yes.
Yes. Kit, did you vote?
I did not.
Okay. Opposed?
No.
Okay. Motion carries. It'll be recommended to the city council. Okay, the next items is actually 5.2 through 5.7. This is all concerning the same development, so I propose that we have the discussion on these items, these 6 items, all at the same time. Being as that's probably how Chris's presentation is put together. And so this is the Red Bridge development, 8 South and 1700 West, and it concerns several things. We've got some amendments to Title 19. We've got super pad subdivisions. We've got amendments to the South Meadow specific plan. We've got some zone changes, and we've got an overlay to talk about. So
You can just go ahead and read it.
do you want me just to read it?
Yeah, just
Okay.
read it, 5.1 or 5.2.
5.2 is proposed amendments to the Title 19 plan of the Payson City Code. 5.3 is the Red Bridge Super Pad subdivision request by Sheila Miklas to subdivide and create smaller parcels of land intended for specific future uses. This is located at 8 South and 17th West. 5.4 is proposed amendments to the South Meadows area specific plan. 5.5 is the Red Bridge Station Zone Change Number 1. And this is a request for change of zoning of a portion of parcel 291224. It's currently A5H. They would like to change, request a change of RMF 15 to residential multifamily. 5.6 is zone change number 2, which is the same parcel, but the rest of that parcel, and this parcel is again A5H. And they want to change, they want to request an S1 special highway service zone. And then the last item is the MU1 overlay, and that would be used for a portion of the property in the zone change.
Do you want to take a 5-minute break after reading all those off? Okay,
I'll let you go from there.
sounds
How's
good.
that?
I can take it from there. So as Commissioner Beecher stated, this is the area in question. It's west of the 800 South interchange, and yeah, it's about 100 acres in total, the scope of the project. I'll show you what we're looking at today, though. So this is a mixed-use pedestrian-oriented development. The super pad subdivision is a little more than 77 acres. In that, there's intended to be a mix of commercial and residential uses, as you would expect in a mixed-use development. The super pad subdivision is designed to break that down a little bit more, much like you would with a general plan and area-specific plan, just focusing more on a smaller piece of land so that those can develop independently and so that ownership can also be independent. So lots of land use approvals are being requested, but all of these are intended to work together to cohesively bring the Red Bridge Station development to fruition. So with that, these have to happen in order. So please excuse my dear Aunt Sally for this is listed as follows. These will all allow in order these things to happen. And yeah, that's why they're listed the way they are on your agenda and in this presentation. So we will start with amendments to Title 19. Most of those center around the MU1 overlay section of Title 19. So the applicant has requested a few allowable land uses to be added to that section of code. They're listed there. So accessory buildings in support of public infrastructure or community amenities, drive-up service windows, e-bike scooter rental sales, pool maintenance rooms and restrooms, dumpster enclosures. And then we have some other changes that go with that as well. There's a request to change the lot width requirement from 150 to 80. As to allow buildings up to 5 stories tall, which are the current limit is 4. Increase with that would come an increase in the interior height limit from 48 to 60 feet. Height limit increase for accessory buildings from 10 to 15, permissible lot coverage 80 to 85. On-street parking is proposed to be included in the parking calculations for the development. You'll see also additional charge for parking beneath buildings, and then the expiration date for the overlay approval. And we've sent staff callouts and we've since talked to the applicant. I think we're all on the same page with that. The proposal is changing validity from 1 year to 10 years. The discussion we've had would make that 3 years with potential extensions that would be 1 year at a time. And then finally, an additional 1/3 of the required open space for development. They're requesting that it would be satisfied, or that it could be satisfied by using excess open space in other parts of the overall Red Bridge development. And well, let me clarify. They're requesting for the Red Bridge development. These changes could be applied citywide if we're changing the MU1 overlay. So moving on to the super pad subdivision, it's a total of 16 lots that are being proposed, all of which are part of the overall project vision. This will allow the project to move forward piece by piece. We would like to take one bite of the elephant at a time, and this will allow us to do that. So the super pad delineation will show what that will look like and show what those steps will look like as the development is built out. This will define development costs for the PID versus the individual landowners within that subdivision. It'll guide improvements being built, utilities, et cetera. This will also define the transportation network. It includes the recent findings from the 800 South Transportation Study. And this also allows individual parcels to change ownership. And one of the notable examples of that recently is this would open it up to be dedicated to MTech. So this is the western half of the super pad plat, and then this is the eastern half. So like I said, 16 lots total, 77.2 acres included in that subdivision. So now going to the amendments to the South Meadows area specific plan. The applicant is requesting an increase in the overall unit count. So in the base scenario on the plan that was outlined in 2016, the unit count was 664. The amendment that took place last year bumped that up to 1,125, and the proposed amendment is asking to bump that up to 1,240 dwelling units total. So that's 115 more units than the previous amendment. This is still legislative change, and if this is granted, they'll still have to meet city code. They'll still have to make sure that everything on the administrative side is taken care of. But that increase is supported by the housing market analysis that was submitted. So other factors considered in the amendments to the South Meadows plan. There are some things that will be shifted with the results of the 800 South alignment study. That includes trails, it includes some of the land uses that have been delineated in the past. And that includes the location of 800 South itself. So those are just a few housekeeping changes that go with that. And then most of the rest pertains to the increase in the unit count. So this is amendment number 1. I don't know how well you can see that from there, but amendment number 1 versus amendment number 2, you can see amendment number 2 shows the alignment of 8 South, where that will be and how that fits into the overall scope. And then here is the density calculation for this area. So figure 4.1 is the original approval and figure 4.2 is the proposed approval. And then here's the unit mix. If you want to take a minute to take a look at that.
As if that makes any sense.
Well, it's 576 one-bedroom units, 478 two-bedroom units, and 186 three-bedroom units for a total of 1,240.
Yeah.
And there you go.
That's like looking at a financial spreadsheet. It's
Which I
almost
happen
as
to love.
entertaining.
Yeah. Sorry, we didn't pop any popcorn for you. I apologize. So with the zone changes, it is 2 zone changes being proposed on this parcel. So this map shows where those will be. RMF 15 does include the wetland area and that will be included as part of the density calculation for the RMF 15s, the part of the parcel that is zoned RMF 15. But yeah, so part of this will be RMF 15, part of it will be S1 if approved. So the MU1 overlay, this is a mixed use overlay. It can only be applied in the S1 zone. And so with that, it is still legislative approval. It's treated like any other zone change. But the history in this area, this was originally given a TSO overlay approval, which was intended to center around transit. As we know, we don't know the mode of transit yet, nor do we know the exact location of the station. So the applicant submitted the MU1 overlay application instead, because that will allow the overall development to proceed, even though we don't have those exact answers on transit yet. So anyway, if the overlay is approved, any developments within the overlay still have to satisfy all the requirements of the overlay section of the code. And when the applicant submits plans, to develop within the overlay. Staff will review those in more detail. So potential issues to keep in mind, utility availability has been the song we've all been singing in this area, which is why the PID was created. And that does address the impacts on existing utility infrastructure in that area. One thing to consider, the amendments to the ordinance and to the South Meadows area specific plan would be applicable citywide. We're focusing on the Red Bridge development right now, obviously, but if those changes to code take place, those would be, I mean, the code is for the whole city. So just be aware that those implications could be citywide. So the staff recommendations on all of these are, well, we're recommending approval with an asterisk on the Title 19 amendments that conditions, well, the condition that staff recommendations have been addressed and implemented for those. And we sent you the call outs. We're looking for a little bit of staff feedback on those call outs that we sent and hoping to shore that up before we bring it to city council. So I believe that is the end of my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions, and we also have several representatives from the development team here, one of whom does have a presentation. So
the one with the call outs, the red is language you want to delete. That is the developer wanting to delete language.
yes,
That was
so
my understanding when I read it. So I want to make sure I understood that right. The blue is the language the developer wanted to add. The red is the language they wanted to delete. And then the green was the explanation, but that's from the developer standpoint, not from staff standpoint.
if it has an arrow attached to it, that's from staff.
That's
If
it.
it's in
I
the
just wanna make
body
sure
of
I
the text,
understood when I
yeah.
read through it, that
Yeah.
was,
Sorry, that was unclear, but
no,
yeah.
that's what I took. But I wanted to make sure I was not off. So.
Does the developer want to come up and give us some comments? We might have more questions that way. Remember to state your name for the record.
Ken Berg from Berg Civil Engineering. I'm stalling while Jerry's doing some technical stuff. You know, we're asking a lot from you tonight, you know, so I think just as your questions come up, you know, we'll try to answer them in those piece by piece. I think as Chris showed on the hierarchy of approvals, Jerry's going to talk to you about the, you know, kind of give you the overall layout and the MU1 overlay. And then as we get into the super pad plat, the PIDs, the zone changes, we can help talk about those too. But we'll try to be as organized as we can if you guys will allow us to be, and try to ask the questions in those orders as well. So how'd I do, Jerry? You ready? Okay.
Hi, my name is Jerry Robinson. I'm the architect for the project, and I have some notes in. My intent is to give you a general overview of where we are, what we're doing, so that it is in a form that makes sense. One of the things a couple of things I want to emphasize. I'm going to start by explaining how we're trying to be considerate of our existing neighbors. But in general, this project and this area specific plan is where the city has designated in their South Meadow area study for higher density. As I think the planners have mentioned, this is one of two nodes that they called. That's their term, not mine. Here's one. The other one is closer to Main Street exit. What's that?
lost their screen share.
So we've emphasized trails, pedestrian connections. We meet UTA standards. We're trying to encourage transit here, which means it has to be walkable and pleasant. Walkable means more than sidewalks. It means a sidewalk. In this case, we have trails that are 10 foot wide. They're meant to be just connecting.
Should we have Chris?
Yeah, but if you bring up your computer. Does this have little images on the side like mine did? No, this. Right here. This is, that's exactly, okay. Okay, well, this isn't my computer, but I'll do my best to make it make sense. Can you come work with me, Chris? Because, pardon me?
Can I grab a drink real quick?
Certainly. I'm not familiar with this machine. Anybody know how to? Okay. I'll just tell you what I want and you make it do it. How's that?
Sounds good.
Okay. I'm trying to see the image here. Okay, I want to zoom in right there. Right there. Yeah, we'll slide it down. I don't need the words. Okay, I'll just start here. Lower left part of that image is the existing homes that are there on 1750 West. Coming back. I'll just keep talking until they do that. 1750 West to 1130 South. They're 2 stories tall. They were built within the last few years. The units that we have just to the north that I'd prefer to point at if I could make this pointer work are also 2 stories tall. Now I need to go there to the all right here to the right, the existing condominiums. Is there a cursor we could use? Okay, well, to the right are existing condos. They're 3 stories tall. The units that we're showing on the left are also 3 stories tall. Let's go to the next page. Okay, zoom. Okay, this is the overall project. And I'm going to start with our lower densities and go to the higher densities. If you look at the lower left, we have lower densities. We have open space park area in the middle, wetlands, etc. Now I'm going to zoom in on that same one for the next page. Not quite so much. Let's do it now. This is the same area. Single level or not, these are single family homes and townhomes, open space in the middle, wetlands, density near 7 units per acre.
I'm gonna stop my share. I'm gonna start yours.
Oh, okay. Great. Okay. Back with my machine. Okay. They look like this. Homes, 2-story homes. We haven't specified materials. These are just white surfaces, but they'll be, whether they're siding, brick, stucco, or whatever. Notice they're not just endless townhomes, which you see here, there, and everywhere. I'm gonna try to- I'm just giving you a range of units. Across the street from those two-story buildings, we have two-story fourplexes, more contemporary in design. This is a rather commercial area. We've chosen to make it a more contemporary design. We don't want it to look like we want it to look new and modern. And then from there, we go to these are 12 plex units, 3 stories high, 3 bedrooms, different design, or variation on the same design for 2 bedrooms. From there, we go to our 8th South buildings. These are the highest density ones. These are across from the existing railroad tracks. These are next to the MTech school. Same street looking the other way. And the end of that street, we are showing a building that we're designing with the expectation that MTech Culinary Arts and whatever the beauty salon version is going to be in the same building. Right here on that right side, there's a glass wall with a curved surface that would be where their dining area is. So the students can walk from the school over to the culinary arts area, learn how to cook, learn how to serve students and also people in the community. So the idea is to integrate the school into this area. Going back to the that area is right about there. In the middle of that white area is the MTech school. There's a stream running through it. Wetlands, open space. And that's the general project. General density, general look, transitioning from 2 stories to 3 to 4, and in some cases 5. And the reason we have 5 is that big UDOT road through the middle, which has caused a major redraw for us. We had to start over. We lost most of our design. Everything from the middle north was redesigned. We lost 89,000 square feet of commercial space by having that road go through there. But we've done our best to keep it with the original idea, the original open space in areas and higher density in others. And an invitation for UDOT, not UDOT, but for UTA to come to this community with our trails, our street crossings that they like, and trying to meet their expectation. There's a whole book published of UTA guidelines, and we meet them now. So I'm happy to answer any questions or sit down.
Do we have questions for Jerry? Not right now. It doesn't look like so. Okay. Any questions for staff before we go to the public hearing? Okay, I need a motion to open the public hearing for items 5.1 through 5.2 through 5.7.
They have to be separate or
We're going to have one public hearing for the whole thing.
Motions will be separate.
The motions will be separate, but we'll have one public hearing.
I move we open public hearing on items 5.2 through 5.7.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have several seconds. All in favor by yes.
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 Which one are we saying is official second?
Let's give it to
Commissioner Moore.
Commissioner Moore.
Said it first.
Commissioner Cowan got one earlier, so.
Oh, mine was the third.
So public hearing, this is a chance for the public to talk to us about this item. If there's any public left here for this item. There were some. Is there
Applicant was on there.
anybody else that? Doesn't look like it. Okay. And no one here in the chamber, so
I move we close public hearing.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, John. I have a motion and a second. All in favor by yes?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, discussion. Commissioners,
It's a lot.
it's a lot.
Um,
It's a lot.
I guess I did have a question for staff before. The roundabout, I'm just concerned with right now, we have a lot of trucks going through that and on that road, and then adding a roundabout there before 8 South is completed. Are we gonna have any issues with that? We don't know. Okay.
If nobody, well, Commissioner Warner sent me some notes about what he was,
He's gonna talk to my.
okay, he's gonna talk about the roundabout first. Okay,
Oh, roundabout.
go ahead. Ken.
We had the roundabout.
Say your name
Oh,
just so it's in
sorry.
it's in the record.
Ken Berg. We had the roundabout studied, and the roundabout as you're on 1700 West is a 2-lane roundabout, 2 lanes wide, not just a single lane. So it's wide enough to handle the truck traffic that is on 1700 West. And
Bus,
so,
like school bus or.
yes, it's not a tiny roundabout that would give my wife's problems in her Suburban. It's a large roundabout that can handle, that has been modeled to provide those truck turning radiuses.
I think as the
But good
first
question.
roundabout in Payson, it might be confusing.
Well, we
two
might have to
lanes.
have a couple of roundabout days in Payson to
Anyway.
It's not that hard, folks.
I do hate
I've
2-lane
had-
wide roundabouts personally, but I understand there's a necessity.
you always turn right to go in.
Just hate being on the inside lane and you're just like,
If you get in the inside lane, then you go around like in London where you just keep going
You
around
think
and
you
around
find
and
a way to
around and you
exit
can never
and
get
just-
out. So.
Okay.
Okay,
You had a list.
I have a list from Commissioner Warner, so. He talks about this is all mostly in the Title 19 amendment stuff. And he's talking about in 19-6-35-10, there is a managed as wetland statement. And he's wondering if that is specific enough. Could this be satisfied with a weed patch that has a stream in it? And do we have a definition of what managed is? So that was one of his concerns. I'll just go through these and then we can talk about them in a minute. 19-6-35-11, paragraph 3, parking is permitted to carry an additional charge to tenants. Is an additional charge prohibited somewhere else? Why call this out? And then paragraph 1 in that same area, on-street parking counts towards parking requirements. He feels that this should not be allowed. The roadways are likely to be crowded as development further south occurs. 800 South will be a natural high traffic area. We need big unencumbered roads in this area. In 19-6-35-12, it talks about entitlements, and he says he doesn't understand what this is doing. Project phasing needs incremental review and approval of each phase. These phases may take years to complete. Needs change in approvals are as appropriate. In 19-6-35-13, it talks about duration of overlay. 1 year is too short, 10 years is too long. Chris already addressed this a little bit. He's saying that every 3 years is what he would recommend. So then it's kind of what, that kind of sounds like what the city came up with too. So that's good. 19-6-35-16, open space and landscaping. he would like to understand the proposal a little bit better. 19-635-17 project amenities. He's talking that it's probably okay to share amenities, but does this language protect the city with contracts, or what other ways to help maintain the amenities and keep them going and make sure they happen as other projects come in, being as it's super pad and it could be sold to different entities and all that kind of stuff. And who does the city have the leverage against if the amenity either doesn't happen or falls into disrepair? So those were his questions. Can you answer any of those, Ken?
Sure, let's start with the first one. Remind me what the first one is.
The first one was wetlands. What does managed as wetlands mean?
So the area in the yellowy green
Mhm.
has been delineated by our wetland specialist.
Isn't the portion that goes through MTech also?
Yeah, there is a portion there too.
Yeah.
But we'll let MTech do that in their site design. So the wetlands that we're talking about, that Red
the
Bridge is
yellow.
controlled, is the yellow.
Okay.
That has been delineated and accepted by the Corps.
The
And
Corps
then it's-
has bought off on it.
They've taken jurisdiction over that. The next step that we've submitted is we're showing our impacts, the wetlands that we cross with roads and our utilities and our trails, that as part of that, we'll enter into an agreement with the Army Corps of Engineers to manage those wetlands. As part of that, we have to create some new wetlands. We also have to prepare an enhancement plan that hasn't to the existing wetlands. How are we going to keep them in their current state? Or what is the word? Oh, they call them enhancements.
Right.
So we're going to provide an enhancement plan that shows, hey, we're collecting, for example, we're collecting all of the stormwater, passing it through treatment devices, which then discharge into the wetlands, so that we're maintaining a long-term source of water for those wetlands, so that, you know, previously the water made it to the wetlands off of the farmers' fields. We're going to continue that in the way that we've designed the storm drain system, so that it can be healthy. Those wetlands can maintain their health.
Does the Corps still require, if you disturb wetlands, that there is a reciprocal place that is enhanced?
Yes, those are replacements.
Yes.
And as part of, that's our next step in our submittals. We've submitted our plan showing our impacts. They review that and they come back and say, oh,
You're disturbing 1.5 acres. We want 3 acres.
or 5 or 7, or they
Right.
get to pick what the number is.
Yeah, they do.
And so we're working.
I
with
just
them.
wanted to make sure that you and I
Yeah.
were on the same page, because
Yes.
I've seen this lots before.
Yep. So we're proceeding down that road, and we have enough area within the project that will make those improvements, so that we want this wetland area to be an amenity for the surrounding area, with the trails that we've proposed and the management practices that we will put in place as part of our wetlands permitting with the Corps.
Okay. I think that probably answers his question there. The next one is parking, and part of this is there's a statement that says that on-street parking counts towards the parking requirements. And there is a concern that has been addressed or talked about before, in both when we were doing on work sessions and in commission meetings here, that on-street parking doesn't always work because it turns into a free-for-all and
Sure.
and we need these roads to be pretty through traffic type stuff.
Right. And again, the on-street parking that we're requesting is not on 1700 West, because there is no on-street parking.
Okay.
And 1130 south, there are areas that there's no on-street parking now,
Right,
because
'cause it's too narrow.
unless you're parking in Dry Creek.
Unless you're in the straight, yes. Yeah.
You know, so there's areas that make sense for on-street parking, mainly along that 1950 west and 850 south, that those roads, although they look big and wide, we're calling them, they're your local, standard local road, but we've widened them. We're calling them an urban local road so that they have a little more streetscape to them, allows some of the additional uses, wider sidewalks, you know.
What's
those
their
sort of
asphalt
things.
width there?
The asphalt width is, the driving width is the same as your standard local road, but
Mhm.
the shoulders are even expanded more so that there's more room for parking, like a bike lane. I believe our overall right-of-way width is more like 88 feet.
Okay.
Just to accommodate those wider side paths and more of that pedestrian element that's in those cross sections. So when we say we want to count on-street parking, it's really in that 850 south, you know, that center urban corridor, that we would be asking for that parking. Conversely, when MTech comes in, it's more of 1950. There would be parking available for those students to park in 1950 to provide for when you're late to class and you're in a hurry, you might park on the street and run in. But I think that's more of a holdover from when we received the initial TSO, you know, your transit oriented development or transit station overlay. In that code, it included on-street parking. That was part of your code. So it's really your recommendations on which way we should follow.
Okay. Yeah.
We need to discuss this one just.
Yes, we do.
So.
My problem with that is as we said, this becomes citywide.
So my name is Joe Spencer. I just wanted to kind of clarify, early on, we had hoped to be able to use some of the on-street parking to count towards our parking requirements. And now we've moved away from that. Staff has asked us to look at that and we've removed that. So we don't count any on-street parking as
For your
towards our
requirement, to meet your parking requirement.
That's right.
Good. So that's Robert shaking his head here that you've had that discussion. So,
Yes, if you look in our call outs.
right, in your notes.
It specifically says that the off-street parking requirements have to do that off-street.
Okay, good. Entitlements and phasing. I'm not sure what.
Is
you
that
could say
is that
about
the
that.
years sort of thing?
I
or-
think so.
That one aligns with what we recommended.
Yeah.
Okay, it does. Okay.
Sorry, you're gonna see me for a long time.
Yeah,
as we work through this.
the duration of the
large
overlay, again, we've talked about that. The 3 years is what the city is recommending.
Makes sense.
I would think that makes sense too. He talks about the open space and landscaping, wants a little bit more definition on what that means.
So again, as it's, ooh, let's use your spreadsheet analogy. We have that large wetland area.
Right.
Okay. What we want to do is to say in that wetlands area, we want to we want to be able to slowly account for, as we're down in the southeast corner of our project, we have open space, but to meet all of your open space requirements, we want to slowly allocate portions of that additional wetlands that we've improved, that we're providing amenities as part of the overall Red Ridge amenities package. And we have more wetlands than meet the open space requirement for
Right,
the
but,
overall.
but as we
development.
discussed before, the core has a tendency to go
Yep.
2 to 3 times more than what you disturb.
Yes.
At
And our
least.
disturbances are, I think we're either just barely over or just barely under 1 acre of impacts that we're proposing.
I had a
So,
project where I disturbed 1.25 acres and they wanted 12.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was disturbing really pristine land, you know, I was disturbing it 4 cattails type thing, so whatever. So. So, okay. The amenities, how do we control that and make sure that it happens in this kind of a thing?
I think the overall development is governed by a HOA that really knits all of these different lots together.
Okay.
That has control of those amenities, maintenance. Nobody's going to be able to break off and kind of do their own thing.
And looks like Jerry might have a comment here too.
When we started this project, we thought, well, amenities, great, we'll put a swimming pool in every one of these areas. Well, that became rather impractical. So if you look at the lower right-hand corner of that image, you'll see, well, it's hard to see here, but there's a clubhouse, there's a swimming pool, thank you. That would be a good-sized pool. But it's expected that that pool could be used by people from any one of these areas. And the way the overlay is written, there would be HOAs for each of those areas. For example, let's take the lower left. There'd be an HOA there. There's a clubhouse there. There's playgrounds there. People with children there are not going to want to have to get in a car and drive all the way across for their children to play. But if there's some big event at the main clubhouse or the pool, they can use that. So it's a series of, each area has its own homeowners association and control, so they can make sure their lawns are mowed the way they want them. But they're all required to be part of a larger group and participate. That way they can use the swimming pool. People from different areas can walk back and forth. The whole idea was to be walkable. And so we don't allow fences. It's walkable. If you don't have fences and you're walkable, you should be able to walk to other areas. So there's an overarching governing board of the HOA to keep everybody all in line and happy and make sure everybody does their part. It seemed like the only practical way to deal with such a diverse range of densities, ages, living styles. Very at the lower left, you're likely to have families with children. Along 850 South, you're likely to have single students. Their interests are different, their ages are different, families are different. So the overarching HOA, it would be somewhat of a board to have everybody work together and cooperate.
Okay, thank you.
They're required, by the way, the lawyers will make sure that they're required to maintain, play well together, the whole package. So that will be done.
Okay. Other comments? We've answered Blair's, I think, so.
They're gonna hate me. I have a whole list of questions / comments, and so I don't know if you want to do it as a 1-by-1 thing to where it's not listing them all off. Then you're like, wait, what was number 3? And
I'm not that smart.
so, I mean, I think we're heading in the right direction. I think we are getting closer to what we would kind of envision this area. I mean, appreciate bringing MTech. I know staff's been working hard. This is a huge project, creating a whole new zoning designations, everything. So there's been a lot going on. So some of my concerns are is this just keeps coming back with, we need more. We need to add some more units. We need to get this more density. We need to raise this. And so I get a little concerned because as I see this keep developing, I'm like, every time, at least I've seen it, it's come back asking for, let's add an extra few units here. When I say few, 100 units here, 100 units there.
Right.
And I think we're kind of heading in this area that it would be an awesome development in maybe Salt Lake area, but not the community type feel we're looking for in the Payson area. If we just keep ballooning up kind of in that area, I think this is a great area for mixed use. And I know you guys have a lot riding on here. You're trying to get stuff going. I think going into 19.6.353, you talked about additions of, let me pull it up so I don't misquote it. Infrastructure, community, accessory buildings. I don't think that should be an issue. I kind of see those making sense there. But I start looking at things like frontage. What was the reasoning behind lowering frontage from, you guys recommended 80 feet versus the 150 feet?
If we can go to one of the buildings that's proposed in the super pad plat against the future 800 South, which is the reason we're doing this whole redesign. There's a small, I think number 9, there's a small lot that is a retail lot that the way that it lays out with the adjoining parcels, it's 80 feet wide. And that's why we proposed it instead of the 150. Has no residential component to it, just because it can't, just based on constraints. Back when we did the original specific area plan and gave you a density number of the 1125, that didn't include the proposed hotel that we had, which correlates to other residential units. And in this redesign, the 8 South, we had one road before, now we have 2, and the 8 South is 120 feet wide. And so in the redesign, we had to give up on the hotel sort of thing and just kind of where the density that we're asking for is similar if we were to compute if we exchanged all of the commercial and hotels and schools down to a residential unit, we're still equivalent. We had the water system modeled by your city consultants. They found that the increased density didn't have any impact on the utilities, the roadways that we proposed. We're kind of just shifting some things around.
So the 80 foot would only be in that one lot, that one section. So would it be better to not apply to the entire zone versus?
Yeah, I don't really.
This whole UDOT road thing was like a stab in the back, and we had to start over. And as we tried to make sense out of it, it was very difficult to make buildings that were 150 foot long and 20 foot deep. Because we have some areas along the north side that are extremely shallow. And that's because of the road. I'm going to attempt to, let's see, I don't have my glasses. Just a moment here. It's opening.
It's not sharing, no.
It's not opening either. Okay, let's see.
I think we get the point of why you're doing that, but I'm agreeing with what Ryan is saying is, should it be in this zone, the language permanently that could affect other developments that would wish to
Or even the
use
rest of this zone, if we limit it to 80, then by the zone, then you could have less than 80 foot anywhere in the zone because
Well, it
we
doesn't
applied that
apply.
to the entire zone.
I don't think it applies.
Chris?
We're not intending it to apply to.
Right, you're not, but some future other development may take advantage of it. That's what we're.
Where is the MU S1 zone allowed?
S1 only.
S1.
Is it S1 only?
So it's only allowed in the S1 zone,
Okay.
and any overlay that is applied is a legislative change. So it all has to go through and be vetted. So if 80 feet is not appropriate on any parcel, that's something that you have the prerogative to deny.
So I would say let's do it at 150 feet, and then when you go to city council
Make an exception
legislatively
for a very small portion of a project versus
versus
leaving it in the
whole.
entire zone change or.
So
overlay.
what
At least that's what I was.
What we're presenting here, we automatically have to go to city council because our buildings are Starbucks doesn't require 150 feet. It's just because it's only this, it's so shallow. Nobody in their right mind would build.
Right, we're just looking though for the whole of Payson, where you're considering just your development, so we would like
Okay.
this
Well, as long-
overlay to benefit us future.
I guess as long as we could go back to city council and make an exception. But we have lots of buildings that are less than that just because it was impractical to make them so huge. 150 foot wide, 20 foot deep. That's a ridiculous proportion.
Well, that's the lot size, not the building size, correct? For frontage, we're only talking about frontage is the 150 foot lot size, not the building doesn't have to be 150 feet, but the lot
Well,
would have to
but
be.
if on a commercial street, if the lot's 150 feet, you're likely to have 130 foot long building because commercial streets are almost wall to wall buildings. That's why we did it.
And then maybe you can answer this one for me, Chris. We're talking 5-story buildings. Fire chief, has he addressed this topic? Has he given us any feedback? Has it been? Because I know originally it's been, hey, our fire apparatus do not protect 5-story tall buildings.
Right. So once again, there are some circumstances in which 5-story building would be appropriate and some where it wouldn't. With the overlay, that would all go through the fire chief to be reviewed as well. So it's reviewed on a case by case basis. So.
Okay. So that was the major concern. So it's like, the proposal is 5-story buildings. And if we're going to go to a 5-story building, who's paying to upgrade equipment for the city? How are we going to get to protect these buildings? Because now it is the city's responsibility. And if there's a lot of added cost, where does that come from? I see, you guys have brought this up, the 800 South interchange has created somewhat of a nightmare on your parcel for you. I feel bad for you in that extent, but I also know that a couple of years ago when we talked about it, and this project started coming about, that was one of the questions is, hey, yes, you're designing your building, but what is 800 South going to do? And there wasn't clear answers at that time. And now we do have some clearer, I don't even know if it's completely clear yet, but we have some further direction based off where UDOT's going. And so I think that's a challenge. And so at least when I was reading it, it felt like there was this, that we have to have some makeup units because of what we're losing with the UDOT proposal, but yet when I was looking at the total overall units, they were still there. So I was like, wait, why are we increasing? You still got, with the redesign, you're still getting just as many units, but now we're talking about adding additional. So can you give me some insight on why?
I'd like to address that. You're giving us a lot of thought, and I want to answer your question. I don't want to be bogged down in technology, so pull up the other email I sent you. Yeah, we're sensitive to the fact that we've added units. Yeah, yeah, just go to that one, or the very first one.
Sometime in the next fiscal year, that'll finish.
Well, stay with me, please. I don't want to get bogged down in technology. I'd like to answer your questions because as soon as it loads, we can talk about it. Okay, this is the plan that we came up with, consultation with the city. And as you said, we didn't know in the beginning. And this is the extension of 8 South. It was thought it might do something like is shown there. And I'm going to zoom in here, Chris. This is, I'm trying to. Yeah, zoom in right there. Right there. Slide that up. Zoom in more. More. Okay, notice the commercial areas on the north side of 8 South. Plenty of parking in back. Rectangular spaces, easy to work with. Buildings on the south, rectangular buildings, easy to work with. Okay, I just need you to stay here. Go down. I'm talking about what they screen. I don't want to deal with the computer.
I'll zoom out.
And just zoom out so I can see it a little bit more. Okay. Yeah, more. Then the next day, after this is all done, we deal with that. That's like a bomb going off in the middle of a project. If you look at the space between those two red lines, that's where we're supposed to put commercial buildings and parking lots. So let's keep going. There, no, so that's what we're dealing with. It's nice, doesn't it? A street and a concrete wall. Well, I didn't want that any more than you would. So we went to work. Let's go down to the next one. And we wiggled and we've pushed and we've shoved. And we've moved the buildings out. Yeah, just like that. And okay, so just a bit. So we've got very shallow buildings, shallower than that rendering here. Okay. So in the process, I need to see the other bottom part of the screen. We've lost 86,000 square feet of commercial. So how do we make that up? City's not going to contribute money to make it up. It's not going to pay for the roundabouts. In fact, we've added additional costs. Please keep going. Down to the next one. These are the kind of spaces we had before we started. Square corners, efficient use. It all worked beautifully. After we're done, we go to the next one. After we're done, we've got this. There are very few right angles in that whole space. We lose parking stalls, we lose building space. The only choice we have is to go up. I brought a little visual aid here. For those of you at home, you can't see this, but I have a tube of toothpaste. And if I push on one end of this, it goes to the other. May seem a little hokey, but I hope you remember this. We push on this end, it goes to the other. Well, we've been pushed between two roads. Our only choice is to go up. Either that or cut out more commercial use, more commercial space, so the city has less sales tax revenue. We don't think you want that. We don't want that. So we decided to go up. Well, when we go up, it costs, of course, it costs more for the units, but that's just part of it. Okay, go up one more. No, never mind. Right there. There's three other things that happen when we go up. We are required to increase the structural framing on the first level. Big cost. We're required to, I've got my notes, where are they over there? We've gone through this with our contractors to come up with costs. Yeah. So we're looking at roughly $100,000 per typical building for the increased structure. If you got more weight on the top, you have to hold it up. So that means all the framing on the first floor just gets much, much heavier. We have to fire treat the whole building, not just the top floor. We're looking at roughly $300,000 for that. We have to change fire sprinklers from a residential grade fire sprinkler to a commercial grade fire sprinkler. And then we have to also sprinkle every little closet in the space. So when you add the units on top, of course, you have the cost of the units. But you have all the buildings, all the units throughout the entire building go up in cost. So we've got more expensive buildings. More units is the only way we have to pay for them. We could reduce it by eliminating commercial, eliminate the top floor. City tax revenue goes down. Okay, show me the next one. We've also got roundabout. So why do we have a roundabout? Well, in the beginning, we had a nice traffic light there at the corner, but we don't have that anymore. It's impractical to put a traffic light so close to that intersection. And so the roundabout is the only practical way we could find to make this project work. And to expect 3,000 students coming out of MTech to make a left turn onto 1700 West without a light or a roundabout is just crazy. The light's impractical because the lights would be too close together. So the additional units are to pay for all this, all the inefficiency, all the more complicated buildings with many more corners. It's just tougher to do it. Can you go back to the very first? Yeah. Anyway, that's, yeah, I want to go back to the very first one. Okay, just want to show you one more picture then. We're waiting for this thing to load. Yeah, very first page. Actually, maybe it's second page. But okay, next one down. Oh, I know. Go back to the presentation one. I can. Yeah. There you go. Okay, go down. Right there. Zoom in right there. Okay, we found what I'm trying to show you. This was easier in the old days of boards and paper because I could just grab it and just come show you. But here I have to wait for it to load. It's loading.
We got a hamster in here on the CPU and I think he's gonna hold
I need
tight.
to talk to the IT guy and tell him you need to upgrade on the.
Get some design Windows 95 on.
Okay, right there. So if I can do something rather unorthodox, I'm just going to walk over the screen because it's a whole lot faster. You can see it. Folks at home, I'm sorry you can't. But right here, we have a building that's about, it's not even, about the depth of a backup space in the parking lot. In the back bumper of this car and the back bumper, that's how shallow these buildings are. That's because we're squeezed between this road and this road. We're squeezed here. This is, we've got, not sure what would go in here, but it's a small something. Let's see here. Anyway, it's incredibly inefficient. That's the answer to your question, why we need more units. This double road thing has cost us, let me get back to the microphone. The double road thing has cost us millions. And the only way to make up part of it is to add more units. Any more questions? I'll go away.
So I understand why they want to add more units, but is it the city's job to allow more units or change that development agreement to make that project feasible due to the change that UDOT has imposed on the project? I guess is my question there.
I guess that's a question for the city to decide how feasible you want it to be.
So next, this was in 19/6/35/10. They were talking about impervious material, wanting to increase that to 85% for the area.
That's probably more of a comment than a question. I just think on this dense of a project, we need to protect as much open space, landscaping and stuff as we can, and 5% on a project that size is huge. So I think taking a reduction in what we allow to be covered, or increasing what we allow to be covered, is kind of a step in the wrong direction. This goes along a little bit with what Blair had talked about on wetlands. So for wetlands to be counted as open space, Chris, I don't know if you know this, what is required for a wetland to be counted as open space according to city code?
I do not know off the top of my head,
Sorry, ask the hard questions, but
I can get you that answer. tomorrow.
my concern would be is during the wet season, are the wetlands usable open space? Or are they usable open space during the winter? Are they usable year round? Or is there only a certain time? And so do they really become legitimate open space if they're not accessible and usable, or there's not something on those?
Let me address that. You can't walk on them anytime. But you can walk on a trail, which we're building. There's trails all through here. There's a trail coming this other direction, so that you can go out for a walk, like you go for a walk in the woods. Well, so the fact that you can't actually tromp through the cattails, you're right, but we still think it's valuable open space. It's great for just getting away from the hubbub of modern living. That counts as open space, but you can't throw a ball there. Can't.
So that would be my concern, is it's not really usable for that area as open space, but that's, yeah.
Depends on how you use open space.
Right.
Have you guys been to the Bicentennial Park in Provo with the little boardwalk through the wetland, that kind of thing?
Okay.
So,
But Chris, I need you here. I need, we're going over here. Here on the lower right, that open space there is 400 feet, 500 feet, and I'll go up to the top. And we're going to create more open spaces, rearrange over here to this left side. There. Sorry, I don't have a pointer. I can't, there's no cursor here. Okay, you got the cursor. Okay, right through here. We're looking at, 300 feet through there. There's lots of open space over here, and anybody can use any open space. So admittedly, it's not evenly distributed through the whole project. We know that. That's why we have the 10-foot trails connecting the project north, south, east, west. It's such a diverse group of ages, building types, terrain. It's not possible to have the same type of open space on each part of the project, but we expect everybody to use any of the open spaces. It's not restricted.
Okay. And then 19.6.351, there's some mention of underground parking. Is there any underground parking being considered as towards, there's none? Okay, because that was
zero.
Okay, that was just a question, is whether
You'd have a water table problem there.
water table cost, there was some serious
It was under building,
concerns.
it was raised parking under a building.
So it'd be the main floor, and then the building would be above that, was what
It'd be above, it would have been above the floodplain, above natural grade, but below units, but it was just incredibly expensive. We couldn't do it.
And then, everybody's sick of listening to me, so I don't know how far you want me to keep going with this, or if you
If you got questions, you ask questions.
So the entitlements and phases, I think, at least the way I understood it, is the entitlement should go phase by phase. I mean, I think that just, we shouldn't say you get all the entitlements for this project up front and we don't get anything in return. It should be, hey, this phase will give you these entitlements for this. I obviously think we need to have, which we do have, a pretty good overall plan. As I said, I think we're heading in that right direction. We're getting that overall plan. What's the whole project look like? I do like the idea of SuperPad saying, hey, we can break this down and we can work on this chunk and make this work, and we can work on this chunk and make this work. But I think we definitely have to look at the overall sign. This one is 19.635.16, back to landscaping. There was a request for reduction in the amount of landscaping. Again, I would be opposed to that. Again, we're talking 5%, and over a project this size, I think that creates a pretty significant loss in landscaping. And then this was, as they've talked about sharing or open space or between different phases. I don't know what the developer's intent was. Was it that, hey, we'll promise this open space in a future phase, but we're going to build this now? Or is it, hey, we're building excess open space here, and then that counts towards the open space of a more dense section later? I don't know if you can answer that.
Jerry, you got it right.
Okay. I'm trying to go, well, zoom out a bit. I don't have an exact schedule of what's built first, second, or third. But I can assure you that one of the earlier sections, let's see, is my finger work? Yeah. Can you see my cursor moving?
Yep.
Okay, this is probably going to be one of the earlier sections. This is a substantial amount of open space. Over here, this area is currently being planned, and it's expected that this area would be one of the earlier ones. I'm not saying it's the first, but it's certainly not a long ways down the road. And that's a long area of open space. So I think that it would be roughly proportional to the way it's developed. I think that the open space, if we took it as a percentage of units, would probably be ahead of the units being built.
Okay, and that would be my concern is, hey, we should have the open space first, because heaven forbid something happens to this project. You don't want to see that, well, now we're going to say we have to develop this open space because costs are going up. And so if we don't develop this open space, then we can't continue this project and start eating up what was designed as open space.
That would be impractical, or that'd be wrong. We wouldn't.
It's concerned though. That was
good question. And what?
And the super pad subdivision will also help delineate phasing as well. That's a lot of the intent of it, is to break it up and have a good timeline for how it's all built out.
Okay. This one might be for you, Chris, but there was some question back and forth on what the roads were called, whether they were collector roads or the urban. On the city master plan, I'm assuming we have them called out as collector roads. Is that correct for the roads plan, or what's?
Yes, your current existing transportation master plan shows them in the previous alignment that Jerry showed with 8 South and a T and 1950 taking all of that traffic. In my meeting with Travis last week, you're going to be seeing an amendment to the transportation master plan to show these roads being more of that local, that urban local that we talked about, to get everything back into compliance with everything else. One more change, right? Yeah.
Only one?
Yeah, one more.
So, question, there was in the packet I was reading, there was some discussion about moving some overhead power lines. Were they planning on leaving those overhead, or are they burying those? The power lines that are being moved, I believe that's Strawberry Electric, at least from what I was reading through.
We're in negotiation with them. You know, it would be along 1700 West. I believe the great big ones on 1950, I think those are Rocky Mountain Power.
Okay.
And so, you know, we would like to say yes, but it's really their choice of how they want to align them.
So it'd be up to the utility company, whether it was underground or, I mean, obviously my preferred is drop them underground, get rid of them, but sorry, you guys are all like, there was, I don't know if we have it here, but it's the small lot just to the left of MTech there, where kind of the wetlands and stuff. They showed it as lot 14 on their map, and they're showing it as S1 commercial. I was just curious if that really makes sense, being a very small standoff commercial in that development.
Yeah.
So it's kind of where the creek comes through. I wish I had.
No, you're fine. I think it more relates
It's a little
to
lot.
MTech and having, a commercial component that supports the front entrance to MTech, to where you can go across the street to interact commercially with the school.
Okay. So, and then this is comment / question probably for the rest of the commissioners is there's a lot of, at least I have a lot of questions about the way that MU1 is being proposed to be changed. I actually was pretty happy with it as staff had laid it out, but some of the changes I have some serious concerns with. If the MU1's not modified to the way you've requested, and it was still approved to move it with that, is that the direction the developer wants to head, or would it not meet their needs if it was not modified as requested?
Guess it depends on which modifications you're talking about. The 80-foot width.
Most of the ones that I've brought up would be, yeah, if we just said, we're gonna take it as staff has written it and say we can apply it that way.
80-foot width, we can deal with that as long as we have the option of going back later.
I guess it would depend on.
You should come up here.
I think the question is at which point the staff had in the first revision, or after they did some red lines and we adjusted, or at this point, we're very close on what the staff, we've had several sets of meeting with the staff, and I think we're very comfortable with where things are, where the staff is comfortable and we're comfortable with where it's at. So I'm not exactly sure what level of, because it's been an ongoing discussion for several weeks. Are you thinking from 3 weeks ago or 5 weeks ago?
I'm looking at the one I got in my packet with, these are the questions that have come up based off of, I'm assuming staff sent you, this is what we have, and you said, we want to change it to this. Has staff approved or been accepting of any of the proposed changes at this point?
Some of them. So we've got some and some, but yeah, go ahead, Chris.
So yes, we have worked with the applicant. The call outs and the feedback that we've discussed tonight kind of factors in with that, and then getting your feedback as well. We're going to eventually give you a copy of the complete proposed changes with amended language, with everything taken into account. And yeah, that's what we're hoping to bring to the city council, is with your feedback, with discussing it with the applicant and with looking at the code, just getting a more complete product. But generally speaking, staff are supportive of the majority of the amendments that have been proposed. And then obviously we have our call outs with the stuff that we differed on. So.
And our understanding was that the applicant was pretty okay with the call outs that we have made as well. And so in the interim time of this coming to you, if your recommendation is to go forward with some amendments, then we would actually create specific language that details all of those call outs, what we finally agree on, and take that to the city council.
And I would also just add one more thing. There are a lot of changes being proposed. However, the staff support, a lot of that is rooted in the fact that there's still legislative approval necessary whenever the MU1 is applied. So it'll still go through you. We'll still look at everything. It'll still go under staff review. But this allows some flexibility, a little bit more density in areas that are most appropriate for it.
Okay. And then just one of the last things, there's the housing mix. I see a whole lot of 1 bedrooms. I know they've eliminated the word studio because that was a concern. And I looked at the market study, which, I mean, apparently the market study is showing 1 bedroom as being an attractive option. I guess my concern is, do I want 25-30% of this development to be 1 bedroom apartments? Is that what we're wanting for Payson, for a community? Is that what we're trying to design? Are we trying to be more family oriented to where maybe larger units would be the better option? And I saw a pretty significant portion of small units. So
can I make a comment on that one?
Right. Yep.
I think that's a really, really good observation. And I think that's something that as the planning commission, as staff, as applicants, that's something that we all have to consider. We need a housing mix in our community, right? And I am generally of the philosophy that if you have an opportunity to put density where it makes sense, it generally protects other areas of our city that are more prone to single family, larger lot subdivisions. And it kind of reserves it and takes the pressure off of those areas. So we can have larger single family homes where they're appropriate in our city by having smaller units, things like that, where they're appropriate in the city. So I'm not speaking for or behalf of the applicant or whatever, but there are certain elements of this project that make sense because you have the elements that allow a denser use, access to transit, closer proximity to the freeway, allowable open space, and closer proximity to goods and services that are used on a more consistent basis. And that generally lends itself to allowing other areas to be protected and saved for those larger single family homes. So that's just an observation.
So appreciate y'all tolerating my list of questions and everything there. Like I said, overall, I'm in favor of high density here. The reason I'm not totally just gung ho about it is just because I think there's a lot of questions and holes that need to be filled. And so it's not that I'm like, oh, this is totally off base from where it should be. I think there's a lot of good things happening in this area. I see that we're making a decision that's going to affect Payson 20, 30, 40 years, 50 years down the road. And I don't want it to be this eyesore of who approved that. Why on earth did somebody say yes to that when we made this really bad mistake? Because it is a huge project. And so my reservations are more just because I have a lot of unanswered questions, which I understand some of those are going to be flushed out as development continues and things work out through there. Like I said, I think we're heading the right direction, but yeah, just based off kind of some of the stuff I'm seeing, I do still have some questions I'd like answered before we just jump forward with all the proposed amendments and everything that way. So.
Okay. Are you
Sorry.
finally done?
I will shut up.
Okay.
Could we, so if we need more information on this, can we get a list compiled from the planning commission as to what you'd want staff to flush out with the applicant?
I would have to email you a large list of my comments.
Okay, that would be terrific,
So-
because yeah, if we got square one, we can
And Jill
hash
already
them all
has
out.
Blair's, so.
Oh, she does, okay, great.
John.
As long as we got the map up there, areas 15 and 16, lower left corner there. We have two loops that come down and go on to 1130 South. If you could raise that just a little bit. 1130 South is a very narrow road. And how many units are there in 15 and 16 approximately?
To the left, that's 16. I think there's 76, and on the right, I think there's 38 plus or minus one or two.
Okay, so we're talking over 100 units there, and if you figure 2 automobiles per unit or more, we're talking a couple of hundred cars coming out on that road, and then when they get to 1750 or 1700 South, how are we going to get those people onto 1700 South? Is there going to be a traffic light? We're going to widen the road? What's the thought on that?
Good point, John. As part of the super pad subdivision, the PID, the Public Improvement District, is widening 1130 South and is completing all of the improvements on 1700 West to the full planned build out. 1700 West is a collector road. 1130 South is a next step, a minor collector, I think is what it's classified at. So they will widen both of those roads to allow for not only the traffic that Red Bridge generates, but the anticipated traffic further to the south. So to preserve those transportation corridors. That's the new route to get to that eventually new light at 800 South, 1700 West, with the UDOT proposed road going up over the tracks out west.
Okay. Well, just a little further comment. I've been approached by several people that live in the area further south. with some valid concerns about the development going on in that area. And I haven't heard about this, but they're saying there's a proposed road that will run through that area on farther south. There's a lot of concern in that area, along with what they're claiming is somebody wanting to put another group of condos or townhomes in the area further south by the Orthodox Church. And I want to go back several meetings where we have discussed a transition zone, and we talked about transition zone in the Spring Lake area a few minutes ago. But where do we begin a transition zone to go to from high density, which we're seeing here, to the farmlands further west and further south? And I don't know if that's a question that you.
Well, no, that's an excellent question. I think that you've been working on that answer, and that answer is found in your specific area plan, your South Meadow specific area plan that talks about, here's your density node, and here is how it filters down to match more of that rural setting. And that's kind of your governing document that shows how we transition from what we've proposed here down to RMF 10, down to other single family, down to essentially county zoning when you get to the periphery or the edges of your current South Meadows specific area plan, which you've approved and adopted. So.
All right, thank you.
Is any other comments, John?
That's all. That's all.
Tyler, do you have anything?
Like Brian and Blair got most of the they got all the good ones on us.
They got all the good ones.
Superficial.
Okay.
It looks like there's an path that goes across the end south. Is that going to be a tunnel underneath it or a sky bridge over it? Do you know?
It's proposed to be a path underneath, because
8 South's raised there.
Yeah, once you cross the 800 south, 1700 west intersection, it starts to climb up. So yeah, so it's important to have that
and everything, right?
connectivity between that and the other side of the road. And it's more than just a hurry and run sort of tunnel. We're planning it large enough that it, can a tunnel be yes, it's an inviting tunnel, to make that connection between those pieces.
So I've seen some scary movies.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That it can handle both traffic underneath and pedestrians, that it's functional. So.
Similar to University Parkway, south of UVU.
Yeah, that's the intent.
Yeah. Okay. Kathy, did you have anything?
I think Brian.
Okay. Kit, did you have anything? Commissioner Morgan.
No, I believe everything's been covered that would concern me.
Okay.
Yeah, I did have one more thought, and this concerns the on-street parking we were talking about a little while ago, especially around MTech. Most of you know I worked at BYU for 35 years. And on-street parking around the university campus is a zoo. And I'm wondering if they're, especially along 1950 West and the roads close to the MTech campus, is there any way to eliminate on-street parking? And that's not necessarily your problem, but
sure,
I think it's something we ought to consider.
It's always possible.
It's always possible.
It's the city's domain.
Yeah, we can do what we want there eventually. So
Yeah.
Maybe, and maybe instead of eliminating it, regulating it.
Right. Yeah,
Just open
that's
for
what
suggestions.
Provo does is they just ticket
Yeah.
the crap out of everything.
Well, that's revenue.
Let me just compare BYU. I went to BYU for 2 years, but it's been a few years now. So but my recollection is that the street just east of BYU, is that 9th East?
Yeah, that's 9th.
9th East. That's a busy street. It handles a lot of traffic.
7th East.
And
up to
then
campus.
between the stadium and the campus, what's that street called?
University.
Okay. Those handle a lot of traffic. This road is not like that. This road doesn't connect anything. You could park an elephant in the middle of this street and you would not create any major serious harm to the neighboring communities, because people don't need our street to get north-south in the Payson area. 1700 West does it beautifully. 1130 South carries a lot of traffic. This is meant to be a pedestrian street, intentionally made for pedestrians, intentionally meant to be slow. We were requesting a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. Crosswalks, trees. We hope people walk, so it's more friendly for pedestrians. Number two is we want retail along the street. That is one of the requirements. I can't possibly imagine retail without parking next to it. If I think of BYU, the 2 streets that were mentioned, other than that grocery store out in the middle, there's virtually no retail on that street. Am I correct? We're continuous retail, at least on 850 South, and we have a lot of retail on 1950 West. That was the goal. Retail, that's the whole idea of a mixed use community, retail and residential. So we've done as requested, we've put retail there. And if you have retail, people don't come unless they can
Street parking.
park in front. So we've made the street parking to work with the intent of the MU1 zone. But again, it doesn't require a fast traffic on that street, because anybody coming to the intersection at the roundabout or 1130 South, if they don't want to go slower, they can just go the other way. At BYU, they don't have that choice. They have to go on 9th East, because otherwise they have to wind through all those residential neighborhoods. Or the same thing with the University Avenue, they've got to wind through residential neighborhoods. This is a pedestrian street, shopping street, mixed use, meant to be a beautiful addition to the community and functional.
Thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners? Discussion.
Kind of said it, I'm in favor of some of the things, and the others that I'm not in favor of, not because it's just a total bad no, but I just think we need some more details on them. So,
Okay. Well, when we do these, we need to handle each one as an individual motion. So we can cover things that might be a problem as we go. So the first one is the proposed amendments to Title 19 of the Payson City Code. That's 5.2. There's probably still some things that need to be fleshed out in those.
I propose that, or move that we remand this back to staff for further study.
I would second that.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor by yes?
Yes.
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 Any opposed?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. The next one is the super pad subdivision. With that one not passing, the first one, does the others even come into play, Robert? Probably do still, don't they?
All but 7.
Well, Kim's not here to answer those hard questions, so it's got to be you.
I mean, you need to make a decision on all of them.
Right.
Right. But then they actually, then the council might. I would think of them all independently.
All independently. Okay, good. That's what I needed to know. Okay, so the 5.3 is the super pads subdivision request. So we'd create 16 lots out of the almost 80 acres or whatever it is. So I need a motion on that.
So I would be in favor of the super pad subdivision. I think it makes the project easier to handle. I would recommend the city council approve the request to make the subdivision for the super pads in the Red Bridge Station, as I think it will make the project easier to deal with and handle.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor by yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that was everybody, right? Okay. Proposed amendments to the South Meadows area specific plan. This is item 5.4.
So I think this one kind of goes in line with the Title 19. I just think we just need to flesh out some of those details because I think they overlap a lot. And so I would propose that we remand item 5.4 back to staff for further review to get some more clarification on how the amendments will affect the specific plan.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a second. All in favor by yes?
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay. 5.5 is the zone change one. This is the request for the westernmost portion of the A5H area. In other words, lot 16, right?
Chris, would you be nice enough to pull that up just so I make sure I'm looking at the right? I think I've got it on mine, but I'm trying to just make sure I'm looking at the right parcels that we're considering with this one. This is the
Yes.
zone change for 5.5.
So are these zone changes okay without doing the?
We're going to
south?
RMF 15, so
Yeah.
we'd let them do
Okay,
15 units an acre. We're not applying the overlays, so
This
I personally
is
don't see a problem with it.
this is
but
currently an A5H.
Okay.
I
zone.
believe it's the bottom right-hand corner. That's why I just wanted to make sure we pulled it up
Bottom.
and we were talking about the same
It's bottom
parcels.
left. It's
Bottom
bottom
left.
left.
Okay,
It's lot 16, which
And
is the
then-
left side over there.
okay.
15 and
16.
15 and 16. Yes, sorry.
Okay,
Everything west of Spring Creek.
and that's just the zone change one with 5.5, correct?
Yep.
I was trying to find that online. I'm not seeing that exact image. That's what I was trying to. Okay, there we go.
Okay. All right, so this is for zone change one, which is the RMF 15 from the AH5.
And it does include the bottom right as well. That's the RMF 15 and right under the EX there. Is that the same?
It's the orange.
Okay, that's one we already approved then. Okay,
That,
just want to
it's
make
just
sure.
that there. No, it's just that. The other's already built on.
That's the one we approved in a previous
Yeah.
meeting for him, so. Okay,
Need a motion for this item?
I move that we recommend approval to city council for the zone change on parcel 29/12/24,
A portion of that parcel.
a portion of that parcel. A5H to RM15.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Permit.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor by yes?
Yes.
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 Okay, 5.6 is the other zone change, which is the remainder of that parcel from A5H to S1. Need a motion.
I move that we recommend approval on the zone change for the second portion of 29/12/25 from A5H to S1.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor by yes?
yes.
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 Okay, and the last one is the 5.7, which is the Red Bridge Station MU1 overlay. And this is to use the M1 overlay on this area, everything that falls inside the S1.
I would make a motion that we remand this one back to staff until we have clarification on what the MU1 actually entails prior to approving the overlay.
Okay, I have a motion.
Second,
I have several seconds. All in favor by yes?
yes.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so part of it's approved and part of it's remanded back to staff for some additional information. In general, we are agreed that the concept, we just need some more stuff. Thank you for your time, and we're really sorry it took this long tonight.
This was good work. He's putting fingers there when he said, sorry, it took so long. So.
Okay.
Spring Lake people didn't want to stay for this.
No,
Really.
yeah. Item 6 is commission and staff reports and training. Tomorrow, there is a work session, 6 o'clock here with the council on the downtown area. You're all invited. Anything else?
We've exceeded everybody's time. For that.
I think the final motion is that we need to adjourn. Is that what it is?
Second.
Does anybody oppose? Let's ask it that way. Nobody opposes, right? Okay. Thank you, everybody, for your good work tonight. Thanks. Sorry.
Just listening to me made you thirsty.